So you want to think like a lawyer, do you? I get it. Thinking like a lawyer sounds exciting. I think what people mean when they're trying to say they want to think like a lawyer is that they want to be quick on their feet, that they want to have a response in the moment, that they don't want to be thinking about, oh, I could have said that and I didn't say that in the moment. Or maybe they want to get one over on someone while they're arguing and debating and be able to be like Marshall and be like, boom, lawyered kind of a thing, right? I get that. However, thinking like a lawyer can actually be really detrimental to your mental health. And so if you're someone who's considering going to law school or someone who's just interested in thinking more like a lawyer, you're going to want to continue to watch this. That way you can see that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Now, if you're an attorney and you happen to stumble on this video, one, hi, and two, it is impacting your mental health. And I'm going to share with you 3 things that I see that are problematic within the law. So who am I? My name is Celia Gutierrez. I am a mental health advocate. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and sometimes I practice law. I've been practicing for the last 14 years and splitting up my career pretty well balanced because I'm a Libra. And so half of that was doing insurance defense work and the other half was doing plaintiff's personal injury work. And yeah, let's get into it. So thinking like a lawyer. Here is the number 1 pitfall of thinking like a lawyer. Negativity bias all day long. Negativity bias. If you do not know what negativity bias is, let me tell you. As humans, we have this programming in our brain where we are basically looking out for number 1. We have to be safe at all times. It is what got us to this place as humans. And it is the reason why we don't talk to strangers. It's the reason why we might look at things and be a little bit more cautious. And it's survival that we have, right? And so we have this negativity bias that is very natural for all of us to have. And if you're someone like myself who may have a trauma background, you may also have additional negativity biases, if you will, or it might be more developed, I guess is a better way of saying it. And so like I'm hyper vigilant. So I'm aware of everything that is happening at all times. I can look around a space. I'm going to know what's happening. I can read facial expressions really well. I can read tonality and just all of these other things that I got to tell you, a lot of my colleagues pay a lot of money to learn, especially in trial work, because most of us don't run through the world with that kind of hyper awareness, but some of us do. And it's one of our superpowers and trauma responses. But anyways, so this negativity bias gets put 10x in law school, because think about it. You're spending 3 years in law school. And in those 3 years, yes, you're learning cases and you're learning history and you're reading a whole bunch of stuff. But unlike undergrad, where you're just regurgitating facts back to the professor of, yeah, I read whatever you wanted me to read, in law school, you are taking all of that law and facts and other things that you learned, but mostly like law and principles, right? You're taking all of those things and then you're applying it to a new fact pattern. That's what they give you. They give you a new fact pattern and they say, what do you see? And it's called issue spotting. And this is the number 1 thing that we're trained to do in law school. We are trained how to find the law and how to issue spot. So when you get a fact pattern, that is your job, is to apply the law to those facts and be able to tell the professor every single potential issue that comes that you see, to show that you understand and that you have learned all of this, which means you are constantly on. You are constantly looking for all of the negative things that could possibly happen for all of time, every single time. And then you study for the bar exam. And the bar exam usually is going to be, most people are going to take 2 to 3 months of that summer to study. And what are you doing again? You are issue spotting all of the negative things that could possibly happen. And the problem with this is that you've now created these negativity or these neural pathways in your brain of looking for the negative things and looking for everything that could possibly happen, including worst case scenarios, right? That is our job. Our job is to look at all of the information for our clients and then tell them, here's your option A, B, C, D, E. You decide which way do you want to go, client. My recommendation is A and B, any one of these 2, but you never know exactly what your client is going to need. Well, this negativity bias means that we're constantly scanning and looking for the other shoe to drop. all the time. And this is a really negative place to be. And in fact, when I was growing up, I had this group of guys that I grew up with. I call them my boys, and we've known each other since we were 10 years old, and we were all the same height. And then they had the audacity to like have their voices drop and get taller than me, whatever. So one of them, love him to death, has very much ADHD. And he would jump around literally all of the time, ever since we were kids. But even as adults, he would still be the guy that's like running up and like, he would run up these stairs and he'd jump off this wall. Like he's just doing all of these things constantly. And I had a really hard time hanging out with him, especially after law school, because it was one of those things where all I kept thinking of is no one is going to pay for you when your head busts open because you didn't flip properly. Like that's all I could think of. Like what a buzzkill, right? Like I didn't want to be around other people. And this is when I did hang out with other lawyers. I don't do that much anymore because all I saw was liability everywhere I went. And it really, really is hard to walk through the world this way where all you see are the bad things that can happen, which brings me to pitfall number 2 of thinking like a lawyer, which is it really does begin to wear on you living in this bubble of negativity. Because think about it, what do lawyers really do? They are there to shepherd and help people through usually a very difficult period of their life, whether their business is being sued by an employer or a former employee, like, I don't know, Lizzo, right? Whether you are dealing with a divorce from the person that you vowed to love for the rest of your life, and the emotional turmoil that comes with that. And if there's kids involved, the custody battle that can happen with that. The type of legal work that I did was focusing mostly on people. First, I focused on insurance defense. So I was representing a lot of insureds and a lot of businesses. And then the second half of my career was focusing on actually representing the individuals who had been hurt. And I'm dealing with people who had severe losses, people whose loved ones died and sometimes had horrible, horrible deaths. I remember I've seen autopsy photos. I've seen crime, they're essentially crime scene photos. I've never practiced criminal law. I thought that's what I was going to get into. But we have people who are dealing with that. I have a dear friend who works in the abuse and neglect section the of the district attorney's office. And like for a while there, she was working on 2 and under abuse and neglect. 2 and under. Can you imagine? I don't want to. And this is the problem with sometimes thinking like a lawyer, is that we're in this negativity bubble that we don't really realize because it's only a part of the world. It's not the whole world. It's just a piece. It's just one piece that we get to deal with. And I can tell you, I had so many clients who at the end of their case would say to me, Cedia, thank you so much for all of your help. We really appreciate you. And we hope we never see you again. I get it. I would tell them, yep, I hope I never have to see you again either, for many, many reasons, but mostly because it's such a heavy burden to have a lawsuit and to constantly feel like, oh my gosh, the other shoe is going to drop. And just, it's so tiresome to be in this constant negativity, because we're dealing with big issues and we're dealing with people's lives, and sometimes it really is their liberty, right? If you're doing criminal work, or their life, if you're doing that type of criminal work as well. And so it is something that can really wear on you. And I think it wears on a lot of attorneys as well, because this isn't a 9-to-5 job. As much as I would like to see that change, and I think we can change that, most old school attorneys and the way new attorneys are coming in, you're putting in 12, 14-hour days, especially in the beginning, maybe even more. You're neglecting your mental health, you're neglecting your physical health, well-being, you're eating like shit. There's so many things that can happen. And because of that, we just start thinking the world is really negative. And I'll share this story with you. When I was a little girl, I loved riding a bike, and it was one of the things that I could escape and do completely by myself. And I would go get on my bike and I would just ride for hours. And there was this lake in San Jose, Vasona Park. And I would ride over there, I'd ride around this lake and just be in nature, and no one would bother me. And no one ever asked where I was, but we can talk more about my childhood later. And I remember wanting, as I started to work on myself and how I wanted my life to be, and started doing, mostly coaching at this point, but therapy certainly helped. Once I started really doing that, I realized, I love riding a bike. I miss riding a bike. Anytime I would go to any other city that really was more bike friendly than Las Vegas, I'd always rent a bike and I'd go see the world that way. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And I thought, man, I really want to do this. And my ex, he was so scared. He was so scared that I was going to get hurt because he'd hear about all the accidents and other things. And at the beginning of my career, I agreed with him. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm never going to ride a bike again. Like, it's too dangerous. I see the car accidents. I've seen the pictures, like all this stuff, right? People drive crazy here in Vegas. All of those things are things that I've said. And as I started thinking about how I want my life to be, I thought, it would be so much fun to ride a bike. And it would be so much fun to ride my bike to the gym. I could do this in a safe way because I go early to the gym, and where I did then. And I figured there would be a way for me to be able to enjoy this. And so I went to Craigslist and I bought myself a bike, and I just had a blast riding my bike to the gym. And, I did it safely. He eventually got on board and bought me the world's largest, thickest chain to make sure that my little Craigslist bike didn't get stolen. It was very sweet. But it was just, man, like I can't live in that state. I can't live in that state of negativity anymore. And me riding my bike to the gym was certainly a part of that, of me letting go of seeing the world so negatively. And thinking like a lawyer is going to do that. And so the final reason and pitfall of why I think thinking like a lawyer is not all that it's cracked up to be is you can't turn it off. And this is where you really need to start working on different tools to help you manage that and to help you not be constantly on when you're thinking like a lawyer. But we've created all these neural pathways in our brain. We know how to look for the worst case scenarios. We live in it. We're well trained in it. And so you have to find other ways, or you have to create new neural pathways that show you that there's different ways of living and different ways of being that don't have to be so negative all the time. And it's a hard thing to do, but it's not impossible. And so I want to share this one last story with you. So my my ex, I'm going to talk about him quite a bit. He's been a really important part of my life. And if you want to hear more about that breakup, you can check out my book, The Summer I Almost Died, available on Amazon. I'll be sure to link it as well. And yeah, so I'm moving, long story short, I'm moving, and he happened to have boxes. And so I asked him this question. This is all through text message. I'm going to go ahead and read some of these for you. I said, I might hurt my own feelings with this question, and it's the only way to stop the spiral. Who is blank? Well, it turned out there had been some names on some of these boxes, and it was a woman's name. And he asked, I don't know, or he responded, I don't know who. Said some of the boxes have her name. My brain writes stories and sometimes gets carried away. I have no right to pry into your privacy, because my brain was already starting to create a story of like this mofo. And again, if you want to read the things that I did, you can go read that book. But anyways, we were going back and forth with it, and it turned out that, he had just found someone who was giving away boxes, and he hadn't done anything. And here's what he said to me that really impacted me during this exchange. Not sure why you go to the worst case scenario. I think you should have confidence and trust in those around you. If you don't, I'm not sure why you have them around. That was rough to read, but it was fair. And so I said that. I texted back, that's a fair observation. Thank you. And then I went on to tell him it's a trauma response that I'm working on, but it also has to do with all of this negativity that I've been around. I mean, 14 years of being an attorney, you don't exactly get to turn it off, but I've gotten much better at it, especially when I'm in a moment of spiraling. And this could have been that. And so what I told him in that moment was, I'm working on it. It's a trauma response. I had to know, I'm working on it. It's a trauma response. I had to know the answer to every potential scenario and predict if it would be safe or not. So I overanalyze and go straight to worst case scenario because it's the most dangerous. By asking you, instead of flushing out the worst case scenario, I was actually showing growth and interrupting the pattern much sooner. Now I won't go down unnecessary rabbit holes of darkness on it. They're boxes, and I totally believe you. And so, and I went on to say, I'm trying to program my subconscious to do exactly what you think I should do, trust and have confidence in others. Not because you said it, mind you, but because I want to stop hurting myself with stories that cause me pain and dysregulate my body and nervous system. And so, it was a really important thing for me to be able to have that dialogue with him and to also be able to name it. And it's one of those things when you look at, can I turn it off? No, I can't turn it off completely, but I can learn to manage it, and I can learn how to interrupt some of these negativity patterns that are so well in my brain, or the hypervigilance. And it's a combination of things that have really helped, but being able to just say, you know what, I think I'm instead of, spiraling and starting to tell my girlfriends and start looking up this person and like all this negativity that gets creative in that process, I can go ahead and make a different choice. And that different choice was just to ask directly, who's this person? And he's like, I don't know. It was some random person who gave me boxes. And that's the end of it. Like, that's it. It doesn't need to be more than that. But when you are thinking like a lawyer, this is really something that can come back and cause you more strife than maybe you want. So, do you want to think like a lawyer? Really? And if you are an attorney and you want to find different ways of being, make sure you hit like and follow, subscribe, all those things here, because that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about, because we have a problem, y'all. We have a big, big problem. And I'm inviting everybody to my kitchen table for us to have a really big discussion about how we can help each other out, because um, here's the thing. You have a beautiful, beautiful brain. And if you were able to make it through undergrad, 3 years of law school, and a bar exam or two, I have two, you have a big, capable brain, and we need you. We need you either doing legal work or doing other things with your big brain of yours. And we can do a lot of good together. And I see a lot of attorneys harming themselves. And I was harming myself in many, many ways. And I'll share more about that stuff later. But for now, it's really so important to me that you know how valuable you are. And most important, lawyering is a skill set. It is not an identity. You have the ability to change your relationship with the law and unravel your identity from the practice of law. Thinking like a lawyer is a skill. And it's a skill that you need to be able to manage and turn on, off, turn up when you need it, when you're working on a case, turn down the volume when you're not working on a case. And you are absolutely capable of doing that. I love you guys, and I'm so excited about this new YouTube channel. So, okay, I don't know how to end this. Bye.